Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Let me remind everybody of three pieces of indispensable reading. One is Surviving the Cataclysm, Your Guide to the Greatest Financial Crisis in Human History. You can find a way to order that at tarpley.net. Same goes for Obama, the Postmodern Coup, The Making of a Manchurian Candidate. Order that through tarpley.net. And indeed, Barack H. Obama, the unauthorized biography. It is simply impossible to understand the unfolding events of the world in 2009, 2010 without those three indispensable books. So please get them and support this kind of work. Again, tarpley.net will direct you to the relevant pages of Amazon or Progressive Press where you can buy these things. So September 29th, Monday, September 29th, 2008, the House voted 228 to 205 to reject the bailout, and Wall Street crashed by 777 points. I think that's the worst day Wall Street has ever had, even up to now. The TAF was coming into existence, the Troubled Asset Facility at the Fed, $285 billion to buy that. Term auction facility was going on at the Fed. What then happened was that other forces came in. They began telling these people in the House, you know, guys, this bailout seems to be for Wall Street. They get the money, but it's really a bailout of Main Street, because only if we bail out these zombie banks will they provide the necessary commercial bank credit for business operations in the towns and small cities where a lot of you guys come from, in rural states and outlying states and non-money center cities. And this, of course, is an absurd argument. If you want to have credit, what you do is apply the law, and that means you, Sheila Bair, at the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, apply the law. If they're bankrupt, if they have 10, 12, 13, 14% of non-performing assets, they're bankrupt. Seize them, Chapter 7 liquidation, and in the process, the derivatives get shredded. But Paulson had to say, wait a minute, the derivatives are the lifeblood of our system, and of course, they're all inextricably entwined. We don't have time to unwind them. We have these toxic assets, toxic paper. We have newfangled instruments, exotic instruments, all meaning derivatives, as we've stressed over the intervening year and well before. So that is how the people in the House were then convinced to change their vote a few days later and institute this monstrosity of the TARP. We also had on October 9th, minus 679 on the Dow. There were lots and lots of aftershocks. And this indeed was the beginning, it has been the beginning of a world economic depression, which is still going on. In the middle of this, let's highlight the role of Great Britain, of Gordon Brown. He is in some ways the architect of the current form of the world derivatives bubble, and indeed of the practice of bailouts. You'll remember that this crisis began in the summer, in August of 2007, with the bankruptcy of Countrywide Bank in California. Panic runs on Countrywide. By October, it was something much bigger, Northern Rock, a bank operating in Great Britain, also in Ireland. That blew up, and at that point, Gordon Brown was the guy who launched this idea that governments would bail out these banks rather than simply applying the bankruptcy laws, winding them up, and wiping out their derivatives. And in the middle of this, the Bank of England, with Mervyn King and Alistair Darling at the Exchequer, deserves special attention. What were they doing? At a time in the fall of 2007, when the U.S. and even the Europeans were, the European Central Bank, were lowering interest rates, the Bank of England insisted on keeping a rather higher level of interest rate. What were they doing? Well, this is the traditional beggar my neighbor policy of the City of London. And it means that the British pound looked at the dollar and the euro and said, only one of us can survive this crisis, and we will do our damnedest to make sure that the dollar and the euro go down and the British pound will survive, and London will reassert definitively its role as the capital of world finance. So that's the beggar my neighbor. Now, that had a special angle vis-a-vis the small country of Iceland, which we'll get to in the second hour. So this is the situation of a year ago. Now, in the meantime, what has been done? Well, apart from bailouts and from all of these facilities at the Fed and making the FDIC into a hedge fund under Sheila Bair with the PPIP program, it's essentially $24 trillion for the banks in the form of bailouts. The useful components of the stimulus, and they were there, $300 billion. So under Obama, which is simply the continuation of the Bush-Paulson policy under Obama, Geithner, Bernanke, it's the bankers are beating the people by a score of 80 to 1. A monstrous situation. Nothing has been done to derivatives. Rather, the approach of the Obama administration has been to stimulate the restarting of derivatives formation. In other words, they want derivatives to metastasize more than they've been. If you look at Obama's approach to mortgages, what is the approach? He wants to restart the securitization of mortgages in the form of mortgage-backed securities and asset-backed securities. That's where the money is going. The money goes to chase mortgages. The money goes to the colleagues of Angelo Mozillo, the gangster from Countrywide Bank. They got the money, and the rate of foreclosures of little people being thrown out of their homes is increasing. So $24 trillion for the banks, special payments for mortgage lenders, PPIP for hedge fund operators, special privileges, as always, for Goldman Sachs, and indeed for J.P. Morgan Chase, which is actually the higher level in this combination. They do a little bit less dirty work and get a little bit less bad press. But that is indeed the center of the New York money center operation. This is what's going on. So there have been no reforms, even now, 8-9 months into Obama and the Democratic majority. Nothing has been done about derivatives. Nothing has been done to stop foreclosures. Nothing has been done about any of this. The zombie banks rule. There's this pathetic charade of some kind of a consumer protection agency so that you'll be told what the risks are when you buy a derivative or you hock your house with a derivative. This is all a bad joke. And this is now the world ruling class that comes together at the United Nations General Assembly and congratulates each other that they have escaped the gaping jaws of a world economic depression. In my notes for this period about a year ago, let's see if I can find it, it's in the week of the collapse of Lehman. Let's see if we can find it. The abyss gapes. That was Thursday, the 18th of September, 2008. This was the Putnam money market busting the buck, going below $1. This meant that the money market funds were all in trouble, meaning that this is the day also when the report was that $500 billion had gone out of the dollar in the morning and that the dollar was going to collapse by the end of the day, and the idea of the TARP emerged. We'll be back in a minute.